Welcome everyone. I'm sitting down today with Louise Bedford. She's a best-selling author, trader, and trading mentor. How's it going, Louise? Welcome back.
Fantastic. Good to see you.
Awesome. We scheduled this a long time ago, so I was super impatient to talk to you for like a month and a half. So I want you to introduce yourself, tell people a little bit what you do these days, who you are, and just a bit of background about yourself.
Sure. So I've been trading since the 1990s, actually 1990. As soon as I was out of university and I'd saved a little bit of money, bang, straight into the markets. I traded, I felt my way in the dark, I learned by Braille, and the way that I actually started to become professional is I thought I need a good broker. And I saw right down the back of the bank at one stage when I was depositing money. Remember when we used to go into banks to get money? I saw the name of a broker and I rang him up and I said, look, I'm fumbling around. I don't know what I'm doing. I'd really like to learn about trading. And will you help me? He said, yes, I don't know about trading either. Let's learn with your money. I thought it was a great idea. So naive, aren't we? But we did. We learned together about the markets. And then over time, I became more mechanical and more persistent with it, but I still didn't make money. It took me 3 years to break even, and I was devastated. I was working so hard at my job, and I had a part-time job as well, and I wasn't making enough money at all, and I was not even learning the lessons. And I said to that broker, do you know what? Unless you can introduce me to somebody who's making money and doing it consistently, then I don't want to do this anymore. You're just making money out of me with my brokerage, and I'm not making any money. And I threw what would be considered an adult tantrum. It was ugly. It was really including tears. Oh my gosh. Like these days, I would hate to think if I was dealing with a human broker still, I would hate to think their impression of all of that. And we know we should never blame a broker, but isn't it tempting when you're under pressure to do so? So he introduced me to a lady who was making money, like fistfuls of money out of the markets. I loved it. I went over to her place. I was terrified because I was going alone and I hadn't given anybody the address, and it made me feel a little bit like, oh, not really sure. And she invited me into her mansion. I gave her a little box of Mrs. Fields cookies because what do you get for the multimillionaire trader who has everything? And I said to her, what's the secret? You know, what are you doing to make money out of the markets? And she slammed her fist onto the kitchen table and she said, do you use candlesticks? I was thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about. Candlesticks, do you light the way? What do you do with the candlesticks? Is it for ambience? What is it? And she took me through to her office and she showed me 2-minute tick charts. She was charting it by hand using a Reuters terminal. And I knew they were about $18,000 a year back then. She drew these little candlesticks. I was literally just following her as she went around the room. And I said, I don't know what you're doing at all. And she said, you are uneducated. You are undisciplined. And unless you discipline yourself, you're never going to make money out of the markets. I bought that book that she suggested I buy. It was sent to Austria instead of Australia. Goodness, I had to pay double FedEx, so that's like $100 extra. But I had the book. It was a Steve Nissen book, and he is amazing, the king of candlestick charting. He inspired me actually later on. I wrote my own book on candlesticks, and I've quoted him in this book, The Secret of Candlestick Charting. But look, what happened after that point, I realized the error of my ways, and I saw that there was so much more to be had. And sometimes we just need a bit of inspiration. You know, this is why your podcast, it's so incredible. You are inspiring traders to be the best person they can be. So after that, I learned how to trade successfully. And unfortunately, a couple more years later, a couple more years have ticked past. So I'm trading for about 5 years at this stage. I had done really well with my career. I was a national manager for a big multinational American company, but I ended up having a sore hand. It started in this finger, actually, my ring finger, and I thought, oh, what is that? And literally within 2 weeks, I had lost the use of my arms. It was the most painful thing I have ever endured. I was no longer welcome at work. You know, they have that way of telling you that you're not worthy. And one of the HR people at the time, because it ticked on for a while, you know, they actually said, you're actually quite useless here. And it drove a wedge into my heart. I was so upset. I had been so loyal. I had given them blood, sweat and tears. I'd climbed that corporate ladder and I'd been a good girl, you know, in inverted commas, because that's what you were supposed to do. So they didn't want me and I didn't want them. And I left. And luckily, because I'd been earning in the markets, I became a full-time trader. So the only thing is, as soon as I left, I started losing money. Have you had that experience too, Etienne, when you've had pressure?
Yeah. So my first month or my first 2 months of going kind of more full-time were more tough. I didn't lose that much money, but a little bit, but still they were more tough. And before, everything was good. So why does that happen? You probably had the experience yourself. Is there like a reason for why that happens?
I think we force trades. When we have a clear trading goal in mind, where we say we have to extract this much money out of the markets, or we have to replace this level of income, it's almost like that becomes the anchor. And anything lower than that is something that we consider ourselves to be unworthy or useless, as you know, I was told through my job. So that pressure, that cortisol release, switches off neurologically that part of your brain that actually thinks. So I've got a psychology degree and a business degree. That neuroscience side is fascinating to me. And as I watch you travel around the world and you relax into new environments and you create your little success environment, don't you, everywhere you go, I can see what you do. And that is part of trading successfully. So until we can have that relaxed, it's less than detachment though. It's not really detachment. You need to dissociate yourself from the earning and have that success environment. And it takes a while to establish when you start to go full time.
Yeah. So how did you recover from there? Was it just a mindset shift you had to make, or some habits you had to implement, or what did that take exactly?
I lost money for 3 months, each month, worse than the month before. And then month 4, I had a serious talking to myself. So because I'd lost the use of my arms, I was undergoing physiotherapy. I had to go to like a hydrotherapy pool. And I met some people at that pool that had far worse disabilities than I had. And I associated with them and they inspired me, and it made me think that there's probably more to trading than perhaps I'm giving it credit for. It is more of a mindset shift. So from that time on, when I stopped pitying myself. I stopped feeling sorry for myself and feeling like my identity had been stolen from me. I decided to shift into my new identity. There's a big difference. You know, I had such an ego, huge ego, national manager, American company, like, woo, isn't she amazing? I was actually the youngest national manager at that stage as well. So I was on the fast track, and having that taken away was, it just wrapped fear around my heart. I didn't know who I was anymore. So until I started to move into the new me, profits were just not going to be coming my way. The market is such a mirror, isn't it? When you are comfortable on the inside and you're sure of yourself and you're confident but not too confident, then the market gives you back those rewards. When you are uncertain, you're feeling like a faker, an imposter, you're feeling forced to trade, you have to make the money because your back's to the wall, none of that is creating that success environment.
Yeah. I've seen it for myself, where if I feel confused, or if I feel like I don't do my routines all the time, I see the market in a confusing way and I'm all confused after. But if I'm calm and relaxed and seeing it the proper way, that's going to be more clear. And the decision I'll make are going to be better. So that's a really good point. I appreciate it a lot.
Clarity is so important, and I think it does come down to a few principles. Psychology, so your own mindset, the system that you implement, because without a winning system, you can have the best mindset in the world, but if the system isn't up to scratch, then you're in trouble and you're not going to make money. And the other component is maintenance. So psychology, system, and maintenance. So once you've learned how to make money, how do you get those dollars to stick in your bank account? How do you maintain that high performance level? And how do you even absorb that into other areas of your life? You know, a lot of my full-time traders, they get totally bored. They go, oh my gosh, there's not enough to do to keep me occupied. So they work part-time. And I know how you've solved this. You've created this podcast. That's amazing what you've done. I've done a similar thing. So when I was, we'll pick up at month 4. So that's where we left off with the story. So when I'd started to trade out of my little rut, after I'd left my job, my broker, who was my futures broker, he contacted me and he said, wow, you're really doing beautifully here. I've been asked to give my top 3 clients over to a book publisher. Are you happy for me to release your details? And I said, sure, you know, what's the harm in that? And just a short while later, I had a phone call from the beautiful Jeff Wright from Wright Books. Wright Books got absorbed into Wiley a few years after that. But Jeff was a tall English gentleman and he asked me to write a book. And I thought everybody who was asked to write a book had to write a book. I didn't know he asked so many people. He asked hundreds of people and only like 3 people out of every 100 write a book. So I wrote my first book, even though I think I should have written this last because it's the most complex subject, The Secret of Writing Options. And that changed the way I viewed my entire identity, my career, what I was set up to do next. I had emails coming in and cards and like presents, like thank you presents from people with disabilities and people who were facing problems in their life and people who were looking to replace their income and to get further ahead. And that's why I started training people, because there was so much demand and I missed people. Trading's so isolating, isn't it? You know, you get your people kicked through doing this, don't you? I can tell.
Yeah, and I think people have to realize like that only trading might be good for you. They might love it, trading all day, but they might not be fulfilled with that for
that's it. And I'm such a people person that I found it difficult. The isolation I found very difficult, and I get such a kick out of seeing the light go on for people and seeing their bank balances change and watching people as they change their cars, their holidays, where they send their children to school. You know, that to me gives me such a burn and such a joy that I would hate to be deprived of that. So slightly down the track, I started up tradinggame.com.au with my business partner, Chris Tate. And he's also a best-selling author. And I wrote some other books too. I mean, there's the 2 that you've seen, but there's also another 3. Trading Secrets, which is probably my top selling item there. Fantastic if you're getting started in the market to about the intermediate level. Charting Secrets, so you can practice your skills. And with my lovely friend, Dr. Harry Stanton, Let the Trade Winds Flow. So Harry's he's moving on in years now. He has been Australia's peak performance coach with trading for decades and decades. So to rewrite his book with him was such a lovely honour. And Chris Tate was involved with that also. So that's how it sort of came about. You know, I've been running my mentor program for the past 18 years. It's the longest running mentor program on the planet. It's actually considered the #1 mentor program for traders in the world because of that. And I've just loved seeing my traders grow. It's a repeat for free course. So those original people are still with me. That community, just like your community, it's so rewarding and it's so lovely. We hunt as a pack now. We are so mastermind oriented, where we compare ideas and we check each other's pulse before we make a move ourselves. And I find that to be just one of the great highlights of my life. So I know you find the same thing.
Yeah, it definitely feels good. This is really awesome work. Now, I want to go back a little bit in time where you talk about candlesticks. So, what were the things that you learned from that lady about candlestick, and what were the things that you had to learn on the side yourself to become profitable with that?
That is a really good point. The thing that I learned from that lady, and do you know, I can't even remember her name. She was a huge Finnish lady, and she told me that she never wanted to see me again. She terrified me. So I didn't even keep a track of who she was. But with the candlestick side, she showed me that it's supply and demand. And when charting human behavior, we are discovering on a chart the waves of money coming into the market and the waves of money coming out. And that if you can really get good with two things, one, reading the chart, so you know who is in charge, the bulls or the bears. And the other thing is your own human emotions. That was the two things I took from her. Look at the emotions on the chart and conquer your own human emotions, and then you'll be successful. So not bad advice, hey? I still follow that advice. I find that with candles, I don't open up any chart without a candlestick chart being apparent. I find bar charts and line charts, they're awfully harsh things to look at. They're ugly, you know. Bar charts, gosh, you've got like a really hideous looking chart there that doesn't give you anything. It has, sure, the same information as a candle chart, but you don't have color, you don't have movement, you don't have something that you can really interpret with patterns. And line charts, goodness, that only show the closing price. They're 75% more stupid than a bar chart, and I didn't even like bar charts in the first place. So for me, I just think there's no other way. Candlestick charts opened my mind up to being able to read that human emotion on the chart, and I was profitable because of them. So if any of the listeners are not using candle charts, I do urge you to. I think they're a fantastic tool. Do you use them, actually? I don't even know if you're
fully with you on that,
I thought you did.
That's for sure.
Yeah, you're not just saying that because I'd torture you if you said that you do.
But at the same time, I think it's interesting to use candlestick because there's so many information, so many patterns people could look at. So how should people start to use candlestick if they're good, like brand new beginning traders? What should they look at?
First of all, put every chart onto candlestick charts, because the more you're familiar with it, then the more comfortable you'll feel. So I'm teaching my children, my nieces and nephews, to use candlestick charts. And so I'll just imagine that you haven't ever seen a candles chart before. So what you'd look for first, I like them in red and green. So green is the color of growth. So that's money pouring into the market and the share price getting higher and people excited about their potential. And if you listen really carefully to that chart, it's saying, buy me, buy me, buy me. That color green is greed. It's fun. It's optimism. It's the future. So the color red is bleeding, and it's sad, and it's fear, and it's almost like the chart is screaming to say, you know, dump me, sell me, quickly sell me, I'm going to go down lower and lower. So look at the chart first of all. Look to see the number of green versus red. Look to see the color. Is there longer green than red? Are there more in terms of when the volume comes into play, if you can get a chart with volume? I know not all charts have volume, but are the candles that are longer, do they have higher volume? If you've got a lot of people coming into the market and the price is going up, as shown by the long green candle, that tells you a lot about the psychology of the market. Yeah. Once you've done that, then learn specific patterns. I find the patterns I use are in my book, The Secret of Candlestick Charting. Yeah. How did you learn about candles?
That was a while ago. I think I probably started with Steve Nyson's book as well. That was probably the beginning, or maybe I read that later. I'm not too sure. But that was a good turning point. I think it's especially good. It's good to have a book like this, like yours, where you have like different patterns that you can use, and not like necessarily 2,000 of them, but only the main ones that you can use. So I think that's useful to have on a desk for a long time.
And it's not just for the Asian markets either, because some people think that that's how you trade the Asian markets, because they're the ones that have them in their papers. You know, that's the only chart you see. I actually went over to IFTA in Tokyo a couple of years ago. And as we know, IFTA is the International Federation of Technical Analysts. So it's probably the major conference for technical analysts to go and attend. And I was swamped by traders who are using candlesticks, who recognized me. I was so excited. I'm actually presenting in Malaysia at IFTA this year, just coming up in a month or so. So, yeah, so even though the Asians and the Asian charts are very candlestick oriented, it's for any market that has supply and demand. I remember back when I started learning about candles and people were so excited about it, that a couple of guys used to give me charts. They didn't look like share charts, hand drawn. They'd fax them over in those days. Remember those faxes? And I'd tell them what I thought the chart was going to do. And after a few months of this, I said, what are you doing here? You know, just learn how to use candles yourself, and then you won't rely on my analysis. And I said, this doesn't look like a share chart. And they said, it's not a share chart. It's taxi license values. They were using candles with something that's, completely out of the market. So you can use candles with any market, any time frame around the world. You can go from like a 1 minute tick chart up to a monthly chart. And those patterns are fractal. They hold regardless of the time frame. So they're well worth investigating.
Mm-hmm. One question I get a lot in that regard when it comes to candlestick is, once you have candlestick on your chart, you understand what's happening in the past. How do you build a strategy around this? Do you have a way to take profit, putting your stop loss? How does that work?
Candles are really good for short-term trading or to trigger the entry of any trade. Candles are not so good for those people who think they're the be-all and end-all for every aspect. They're part of the weight of evidence. So when I'm looking at weight of evidence, I'm looking at 5 different families, and I show that in the Trading Secrets book. Candles fall under the pattern family. So they're just one component and they're the trigger. You still need to make sure the setup is in place. So let's talk in general terms of a medium-term time frame. So maybe you'd be looking at weekly charts, and then you look at a daily chart for a trigger. So for the setup, you'd want to make sure things like there was adequate volume, both overall and relative volume. You'd want to make sure that you've got like a momentum indicator that was pointing in that correct direction, a moving average that is appropriate for the time frame that you're looking to invest in. And you'd also want to look at the line family. So drawing in support and resistance, drawing in trend lines. So those 5 families, you can see that patterns are at the end of that. So if you had that set up with all of those components, and then your trigger was the candle, that's the right way to treat candles. They will not completely replace every other aspect that you're looking at. It has to be a firm weight of evidence for you to move on the candle. And I do have a little tip here, something that a lot of people get wrong when looking at candles. They think that every candle is of equal weighting. And if you've got the right candlestick, then it's exactly the same as another one. And it's not. What I want you to do is to look at the overall trend of your chart. If you've got an overall uptrend, bottom candlesticks will be massively powerful and top candlesticks will be weak, because think of that overall trend. It's going up, so a bottom candlestick will really kick into play, and top ones, they're kind of fragile. And what about in a downtrend? If you've got a share that's going from lower highs continuously, so you've got a downtrend, those top reversal patterns will be incredibly strong. They're fantastic to organize for your short entry, to be able to write a call over the top. They're really, really powerful patterns, those top reversal patterns during an existing downtrend. And what about those bottom reversal patterns? They are weak as heck. They'll punch in a support line, but support during a downtrend is very weak. That's why the share keeps dropping and dropping through support. So look at the overall trend, and that way you can assess the strength of the likely candle that you're going to come across.
Like that. And what can be useful too is to look at kind of what levels in the past have been broken, like you mentioned with the trend, and that helps to see what happens. So I love that. Now, how would you recommend people to test, like what? So once they learn about candlestick, they know how to use them. They have maybe a plan around it. But how should they test to see that they are right with this and that they can make money with it?
Yes, that's a good point. There are two major types of testing. You can do like a full Monte Carlo analysis where you can back test using a piece of software like vitamin C. It'll set you back quite a few $1,000s, and it is going to be something that is very precise. It will test everything that you want to come up with, but in general terms, people can't test that way. It is $30,000 to get started with that. I've got a stats degree. It's some of the stats, they're still challenging. They absolutely. I've actually got my systems tester who I've employed to help me test systems. He owns the software, and we can touch antennae talking about stats with that. So generally, that is not something that the average trader would be prepared to invest in. There's much better uses of your time and your money than investing in that back testing software. So the other type of back testing is to manually back test. This may be where maybe you've got somebody's inklings of a system. So you often on this podcast, you say, well, your trading plan has to include this, this, and this. Okay, so let's say you've got an idea, a hypothesis you want to test. You can look back through that chart, imagine that you were 3 years ago, and walk forward bit by bit and manually test to see whether those results could be from that hypothesis actual in that chart. Now, the thing to remember with this as well is that when you've got your own money in the market, oh my gosh, everything changes, doesn't it? You are more likely to see patterns that don't exist. You are more likely to use hope instead of reality when governing your decisions. So even though I'm a big fan of back testing, there's nothing like putting a little bit of money towards that actual system so that you can learn whether it's going to work in reality. I have trained hundreds of traders through my mentor program that I run in conjunction with Chris Tate. We always suggest while they are learning that they don't put money into the markets. And the reason why is because your ideas change so much, your systems alter, and then you'll be back testing and trying to support your early decision. That early decision where you're justifying and you say, no, my system can't alter because that decision had to be right. I'm King Kong. Of course it's right. It knows that I'm here. My ego is out of whack. So that's the difficulty as well. I think the best idea, educate yourself, learn as much as you can, paper trade for a short period of time, and then put money in the market, just a little bit, and test it. See how you go. Stick with your trading system for 20 trades. Do 20 in a row, not deviating from your written trading plan. And then you'll see who you are as a trader and you'll be able to progress. If you need to change something, you've got data to base it on, and you'll be able to alter your trading plan for the very next trade that you take.
Mm-hmm. I like that number of 20 trades because sometimes people think they have to trade like for a long time, like 100 trades, but that can be tough if you're starting out to kind of get the data. While 20 trades, so
20 trades is very possible. And I think if you set things too high, it's very daunting. You know, when I started trading options, I didn't even understand what an option was. I had no idea if the market went up, the call went up. If your market went down and you're in a call, hey, you know, I had no idea of those dynamics. But by placing trades in my first month, just one contract, placing those trades and monitoring it like a hawk and looking for the areas that I could improve on and going, hang on, this happened in the market, but why did this happen? I can tell you I learned so much faster than if I had theoretically talked about it and theoretically taken those trades. There's something raw and animal and tribal and pure about having that money in the market so that you can experience it rather than just learning the theory. Yeah.
Yeah, a very good point. And once you get to trading live after, I think it's a matter of working on your performance. So, and I know you know a lot about high performance trading. So how does that work? What should maybe you build on first when you start to trade live? Are there things you should do first, then later after? Or how does that
work? I've actually just run an international survey on high performance trading. So I'm so glad you brought up one of my favorite topics. I find that this is a fascinating area, and the way that people handle trading is often not the best way. You look at best practice. You follow best practice and you follow that, and then you've got a chance of making good money. Now, one of the things with high performance trading, and I'll give you perhaps some ideas here, some statistics to consider. And remember, I'm still in the analysis phase of the survey. So down the track, I'd love to come back and give you all of the full results. These are preliminary results. From what we've seen, with 1,700 in the sample size, so it's a huge sample size. It's something that is actually generalizably duplicatable per country as well. The women are outperforming the men. The women are making more money than men. However, they're taking longer to trade. They're more conservative with their trading, and they're facing a higher level of toxicity. Now, toxicity, I'll tell you what that is. You might find a friend says, you know, what do you want to be a trader for? Or, oh, that's just gambling. All right. So that's negativity. The toxicity is where somebody actively undermines you personally. So they say you could never be a trader because of who you are. Your identity is such that you will never, ever make it. That's toxicity. That's calling into account a very personal slur against that trader. So women are facing higher levels of toxicity than the men. So we as women, as female traders, we need more support than ever. There are studies that back this up as well. The women are actually really working hard outside of the trading arena too. They are doing more housework than the guys are. And there are stats to back me up on this too. This isn't just a personal slur that I'm trying to encourage. I do want to give, because I know if you're like my traders here, probably 70% of your listeners would be male. Would that be right?
78% you said? I think it's going to be closer to like
70, 90%. Yeah.
Yeah, 90%.
Yeah. There we go. So guys, I've got a tip for you. The research suggests that if you're not doing your housework, then the lady of your life, she gets grumpy, she gets crabby with that. Okay, so I've got a really big tip for you. Research suggests there is one major thing that the guys can do around the home to keep that balance, and it's doing the dishes. It's after dinner doing the dishes. And what they've found is the guys that do the dishes after dinner, not only do they have a happier spouse, not only do they have a lower divorce rate and a longer marriage, but, and here's the kicker, they also get more sex. How about that? So that's the big tip out of this podcast. If you would like to get a bit more, then hey, help out with the dishes. It'll really assist. Now, why would that be? Firstly, the woman at the end of the day, as you are guys, she's going to feel tired. And it's also drawing on that primacy recency effect. We know that when we're watching a movie, we remember the beginning and the end of the movie, don't we? Sometimes those middle details can fade. Think of the end of the day. What's happening to your lady? She's going, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. I've worked so hard. You know, my trading, it's just all too much. And you swoop in there and say, darling, you put your feet up. I'll do the dishes, right? She's going to remember that. It's at the end of the day, you're capitalizing on that primacy recency effect. And you're likely to have a good end of the day yourself.
Interesting tips. Love that. So, but to get back to high performance trading, are there things people should work on first when they start to trade live?
I think it's a continual process of development. And I don't think it's when you first trade live compared to if you've been in the markets for years and years. I think it's both the same issue. We don't think of our mindset, and our level of financial success will rarely ever overcome our level of mindset development. So what we're talking about here is the more you can develop your mindset by reading good books, by listening to podcasts, by hanging out with other traders, by developing networks that can support you during the good times and the bad, all of that is at play for a beginner or an experienced trader. I'll perhaps give you a personal example. In Dr. Harry Stanton's book, Let the Trade Winds Flow, that I rewrote with him, he actually has a chart in there where he tracks human emotion, and it shows a big swing between joy and then despair and then joy and despair, like a wave. And he says that what that is the beginner trader coming to grips with their emotions in the market. Whereas the experienced trader, they try to level out those waves between joy and despair. They try to flatten that so the joy isn't quite so joyful. The despair definitely isn't so despairing. They're more consistent with their view, and they're more stable because of it. And that should be the goal. The goal for every trader, whether beginner or experienced, should be consistency. And once you've got consistency, the money has no choice but to pour into your account. Most traders don't give this enough time. They go, wow, I'm just going to try this. I'll give it a whirl. What could go wrong? And they're very bold when they start. There's a saying, there are no old, bold traders. As time's gone on, I've become more and more conservative. When I first put on my very first options trade, I came home and I said to my husband, oh my gosh, we are going to make so much money. Do you know, you're working, I'm working, the market's working for us. It's like 3 people bringing in money into our household. We're going to be so far ahead of all of our peers. It's going to be amazing. We'll be able to retire by the time we're 30. Oh my gosh. Fantastic life lies ahead. Okay, so that's day 1. And then day 2, things went down in the market and my bank balance with the trading account. And I came home to my husband and I said, oh my gosh, we're going to lose everything. What was I thinking? I can't conquer this. It's beyond me. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm not smart enough. Everybody knows more than me, and I'm never going to be able to do this. And he just nodded. Very calm, gentle person. He just nodded. Next day it went up and woohoo, and the next day it went down. Oh my gosh. I was swinging. I was like joy, despair, joy, despair, joy, despair. And the shorter term your time frame, the more quickly you swing up and down. So my suggestion, getting back to your point, for a beginner trader is to start with a longer time frame. Keep that resource going into your brain and realize that you can do this. It's a matter of application and continual development.
Yeah, and that's a big key, because you can work on something in the beginning, like you said, but then over time you still have things to work on. And if you just think that you are at the point where you're good, you end up falling behind pretty quickly.
Yes. And one of the keys is to work to a written trading plan. Now, we've shown through studies that people who apply themselves to a written trading plan outperform people who don't use a written plan. And it's not only in our industry as well, it's also in the medical industry. They have shown that surgeons who have operated according to a written plan and their surgery staff are following that written plan with a checklist, surgeons who follow that plan actually experience 8% less mortality of their patients compared to surgeons who don't follow a written plan. Now, some of these people have been operating for 20 years, so you'd think they'd know it all off by heart. But you know what happens? That amygdala in your brain, that's the emotion center. That's that deep lizard brain. It is the one that panics. It's the one that delights. That's the one that we're combating here. And once there's hyperactivity in the amygdala, All of the outer level, that cerebral cortex, stops functioning. That's where you think. That's actually the logical thought process. So there's your problem. It is, we're relying on lizard brain to make decisions when we actually are sophisticated people now. So yeah, you've got to keep on working at it. I've actually got a free trading plan template on tradinggame.com.au, which is my website. And Etienne, I know you've got one too, haven't you? What's your, where do they get your trading plan?
It's on the website as well. I think in the resource page, they can find it pretty easily. Or there's a video on YouTube as well on how to use it. So
yeah, so I think if I was listening to this podcast and I didn't know that much about trading, or even if I was a sophisticated trader, I would get both. Go to tradinggame.com.au, register your details, pick up my trading plan review, and also get Etienne's, because really, what have you got to lose? Free resources. They're the things that set you apart. They make the incremental difference, and that's what you're after. You know, I always think the people who excel, the people who do really, really well, it's not only because they want it the most, because desire is so important. It's also that they plan for it. So if you're not planning to trade effectively, then really you're not going to be able to do it. I don't know whether you're familiar with some of the studies on passion versus purpose. Have you seen any of these studies come out, Etienne?
I don't remember that. No, that's exactly.
I'm just going to get the figures up, and I'll refresh people's memory if they haven't heard of this. It's actually quite a significant study. It was on 5,000 employees from the University of California. There's a Berkeley professor, and his name's Morten Hansen. Now, what he looked at is he had access to these employees plus their pay packet. So what they were being paid. And of course, with high performance, we know generally you would think the higher performing you are, it would mean pay packets. So let's just say that is the case, all right, just for the sake of this argument. Now, what he looked at is he studied purpose versus passion. And he looked to see whether somebody who had a big desire but didn't really have a strong why, a strong purpose, was going to make it, or whether it was the other way. So I'll give you the results because it's fascinating. Now, if you've got high purpose and high passion, it means, according to this study, that you're in the 80th percentile of earning. Now, you would expect that. Somebody who really knows why they're trading and somebody who loves trading, you would hope that over time they'd be in the 80th percentile. But what about if you've got low purpose? So you're not really sure why you're trading. There's no strong why. And you've got high passion. You love it, but you're not really sure why. You're in the 20th percentile. So you're right down the bottom. So that's interesting, isn't it? It means that our traders need to develop their why to perform well. And the thing that I found surprising too, the people who have high purpose and low passion, so they don't like trading, let's say, but they know why they want to trade, they're in the 64th percentile. They're still up. They're still really high. I've actually got an example of this for you. I'm just going to pull out a little example here. I took this down from a new trader, and then I'll tell you what an experienced trader said, and I think you'll find this interesting. So the new trader said, oh my God, I want to trade full-time so badly. I'm putting in 100% and I'm going to throw everything I've got at this. This is my passion. I love everything about trading. All right. So that's exhibit A. And then the more experienced trader said, I'm going to learn to trade methodically so that in 3 years, I'm going to donate 30% of the money I earn to helping battered women escape from their dangerous home lives. Now, think of how high that was in terms of purpose. It was huge. That is a personal goal. It's almost like this is that person's absolute purpose in life, and they've dovetailed trading into that. So that person is much more likely to get further ahead because they've got much higher purpose and high passion as well, but much higher purpose than the first trader. Have you found that with your traders too?
Yeah, well, I see from the example you gave that most people start that way, where they have this big expectation, they think that it's their passion, but have no reason to kind of back it up, and no, like they have nothing to continue when things go not well. And I've seen few people get to the number like the second example, but I feel like people get there more and more over time, and that's kind of where also why just over time to becoming more process focused and more focused on like having a goal, vision, and then step to get there as well.
Yeah, sometimes you've just got to step into your own light, don't you, and see where this torch shines so that you can keep walking. I think to begin with, it can be quite tricky because you don't know what's possible. You don't know what is within you. It has to almost be shown. So that's why I love what you're doing too. The interviews that you're doing, the way that you're shining the light for people to listen. Hopefully it inspires somebody that has that seed of trading greatness within them. And I love it too. I run talkingtrading.com.au, which is another podcast. We're going to have you on our podcast. We'll set that up next. I'm hoping. I'm putting you on the spot. Oh dear. Would you like to go on my podcast? So talkingtrading.com.au, it's a fantastic way to be inspired. And I just find sometimes you need to listen because you can read, you can have one way of learning. You can listen, it's another way. You can be shown, you can do. So depending on your modality, it can actually sink in much more deeply if you use multiple modalities. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I will get to a few questions in the chat. I think we have some interesting questions from different people. So if you want to answer those questions, would be awesome.
Sure.
We have Joe and Sydney was asking, have you ever tried hypnosis and guided meditation for traders?
Yes, I love hypnosis. In fact, Harry Stanton is a hypnotist. And if you'd like a referral to a very inexpensive resource that you can use to give you some guided meditation, general guided meditation, you can visit Daryl Wilkinson at stressfree.com.au. You get any of those CDs, they're fantastic. I've developed a CD as well specifically for traders called Relaxation for Traders. I take you through one of the tracks, then Dr. Harry Stanton takes you through the next track and vice versa. So that one is fantastic specifically for traders. So that website again for the general meditation one, the guided meditation and hypnosis, is stressfree.com.au. Yeah.
Yes. And Joe was also asking about what kind of result can people expect from your mentorship program?
That's a good point. That is a good point. I've actually been audited with the results, not from my results only, from 350 of our actual traders. So we recommend a particular accountant, and so a lot of those traders use that accountant because it's easier than finding one for themselves. So if you look at tradinggame.com.au, and I'll just find you where that link is because I want to give you that specific, and you'll be able to see the specific results that we get. Now, I'll give you the summary of that. Now, if you go to tradinggame.com.au, under Why Choose Us, there's a little line there called Audited Results. Now, these audited results were from a registered company auditor. There's only 2 in Australia. It was a huge deal. And the cool thing is that we came out with this because I was so pleased with this. It's almost like a testimonial in itself, is that our system makes money regardless of market conditions. So whether the market's going up, down or sideways, the system that we've given to our traders makes money, and 350 of them. It was a grueling process, but it's lovely to have that on the website now. You can watch a little video with one of our favorite accountants. It's Jason from the living room. He's, goodness me, he's a television star now, but we were using him before he was on TV. So Jason Cunningham from the practice, and he helped us get that auditor to provide those results for us and to examine all of those traders. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Jimmy was asking, should a trading plan be unique to an individual trader, or should that be pretty much the same for all traders?
This is a very good question. And the segue to this is the black box. So some systems are sold off the shelf as a black box. Now, the difficulty with this is it doesn't suit your own plans, your own customized needs and objectives. And most people find when they're trading with a black box, if they don't know the components that go into it and they're just following along blindly, the results actually are not what you would hope for, because it's not aligned with your inner worth, your values, and where you're aiming. So I do believe every trading plan should be individual. It should be based on what time you've got, your level of proficiency, the markets that you're prepared to enter, and that way you're aligning it with your own true values. You know, I caught up with a trader a while ago, and they said that their purpose, their reason for trading, was that they wanted to spend more time with their family. And then we looked at their trading plan, and they were aiming to trade 2-minute tick charts in the FX market, which would mean that they can't sleep. Now, can you see how that trading plan is completely misaligned with what they've just told me? That mismatch, that's where failure often happens. If you are not following your heart with this, with what you're aiming for trading to provide, and your trading plan, it doesn't reflect your values, you're going to be in trouble and it won't work for you. So yes, develop your own plan. Do it with advice though, with help, with support, with people who've been there before you. That way you'll be able to have a fully rounded plan that will suit you year in, year out. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's getting dark a little bit here, I think, from my view that I see. But whatever, Louise, I want to thank you for being here on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And what can people find you if they want to learn more about you or go forward with your mentorship program?
Yeah, come to tradinggame.com.au, register your details so that we can stay in touch. And if you would like to learn more about the mentor program, I do have a priority notification system. So that's tradinggame.com.au/priority. Okay, so tradinggame.com.au/priority, and then I'll be able to send you information. And I've also got a whole heap of trading resources that I'm providing for people on priority notification right now. So next year is going to be my 19th year of running this in conjunction with Chris Tate. It's been amazing. It has been such a journey. I'm so glad that we had it as repeat for free from year one. I don't know any other system or trading plan process that you can go through where you have that continual support and continual maintenance. It's absolutely one of my great joys in life. So I'd love to see you at my website, tradinggame.com.au.
Awesome. And I know you gave a lot of tips today, but I want to make this really technical so people have things to apply after. So what would be one thing people would have to apply, let's say this week, to become better traders? What would be that one thing they should focus on?
That's a good question. The one thing to focus on this week would be to breathe. You know, I've come up with a coined phrase here, trading apnea. I sit beside my traders and I watch them as they trade, and it can be a little intimidating for them. But you know what some of them do is as they're putting on their trade, they hold their breath. They're about to burst. You can see them changing color. And after they've processed that trade, I say to them, did you know that you were holding your breath when you put on that trade? They had no idea. So I'm calling it trading apnea. I have coined that phrase. It sounds like a good one, doesn't it? I suggest that you breathe deeply. Be aware of your body. Set that success environment before you enter a trade in the beginning. Make sure that you're calm, focused, and you're in control before you even sit down at your computer. So the one thing, breathe.
Love that. Louise, thanks so much. I appreciate so much you being on the podcast today. And if you guys watching this, we'll catch you soon. Check out Louise's stuff. She has, you have a YouTube channel as well, right?
I do, but I'm mainly sending things out by email. So you'll really need to go to tradinggame.com.au to register to stay in touch.
Go subscribe, and then we'll catch you guys pretty soon.
Good. See you.